The world can be a very strange place, with unexplained and mysterious events occurring on a daily basis around the globe. Some cases are solved or debunked within a relatively short time frame, but there are certain mysteries that have left us baffled for a long time, and they remain unsolved forever. Number 5. On the 22nd of August, 1988, a woman whose name has only been given as Carol was driving to work along a relatively quiet two-lane highway near Putnam, Connecticut. She was running half an hour late as she rushed to the local hospital, where she was a social worker who counseled patients with mental illness and depression. As she drove, she came up behind a black truck that was driving very slowly, so she reduced her speed and settled behind it. She wondered why the truck was traveling at such a low speed, and suddenly the truck started behaving strangely. It would speed up and then immediately slow down again, swerving erratically. Carol immediately knew something was wrong, and in a moment, the truck came to an abrupt stop. She would later tell police that the driver quickly got out of his vehicle and started walking towards her, and that's when she noticed he had a gun in his hand. He walked up to the window of the car, leveled the gun at her head, and pulled the trigger, hitting her from point-blank range. Carol heard a rushing in her ears, and she thought she was going to die. But when she heard her car radio playing, she knew that she wouldn't die, but feared she might be paralyzed. She lay slumped across the front two seats, out of the view of passing motorists who didn't seem to notice that anything was wrong. A few minutes later, a utility serviceman drove by, and from his elevated cab, saw Carol lying motionless in her car. He immediately called for help, and when emergency personnel arrived, they found that she had already lost 2 pints of blood and was barely alive. The bullet had hit her just under her left eye, severed an artery, and paralyzed her vocal cords. Troopers and detectives scoured Bremen Hollow and its intersections for the assailant, but to no avail. 2 drivers would inform police that they'd seen a black truck pulling off and onto the highway earlier while taunting other drivers on the road. Carol managed to recover from the attack, but the bullet is still lodged in the back of her head, and the scar on her face serves as a constant reminder of the morning when she was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Number 4. At around 6:30 a.m. on the 1st of December, 1948, police were called to Somerton Park Beach, about 7 miles from Adelaide, Australia. They received a report that a man's body had been found on the beach across from a crippled children's home. Upon the police's arrival, they found that the man was on his back and his head was resting against the seawall, his legs stretched out in front of him and his feet crossed, giving the impression that he'd passed away in his sleep. On the right collar of his coat lay an unlit cigarette, and after searching his pockets, police found an unused second-class train ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, a bus ticket that seemed to be unused, a narrow aluminum comb manufactured in the US, half a packet of juicy fruit chewing gum, an Army Cub cigarette packet with 7 cigarettes, and a box of matches. A coroner would find that he died no earlier than 2 a.m., and that the cause of death was likely heart failure, possibly from poisoning. He also noted that the man had unusually large and high-set calves, as if he was in the habit of wearing high heels or possibly did ballet. 4 months earlier, John Cleland discovered a small pocket sewn into the man's trousers. Inside was a tightly rolled up scrap of paper with the words "Tamam Shud," which means "it is ended," printed in an elaborate font. It was found to have come from a book written in the 12th century. On the 23rd of December the following year, a man visited the detective's office in Adelaide and told them that he and his brother-in-law had been out for a drive just after the man had been found. He kept the car parked a few hundred yards from the beach, and while on the drive, his brother-in-law found a copy of the book in the back seat. Both men thought the book belonged to the other and left it in the glove compartment since. When they read about the unknown man, they retrieved it and found that the final page was missing, along with the phrase in question. Upon looking at the book more closely, a telephone number was found belonging to a woman who's named Jestin. She told police that she'd given a copy of the book to Alfred Boxall, but he was still alive and still owned his copy of the book. The book was scrutinized under ultraviolet light, and it revealed a code that, to this day, has not been broken, and the Somerton man remains unidentified. Number 3. On the 30th of June, 1999, 41-year-old Ricky McCormick's body was found in a cornfield by a woman driving near Route 367 in West Alton, Missouri. Ricky was a high school dropout who lived with his mother at times, but had several addresses in St. Louis. He also suffered from chronic heart and lung issues and had spent time in jail before. He was unmarried but was a father of 4. Police found the location of his body to be strange, as he didn't own a car and that area wasn't on any public transportation route. They also found that he had no enemies and that he had not been reported missing. He was last seen alive 5 days earlier at the Forest Park Hospital in St. Louis, where he went for a checkup. When police checked his pockets, they found 2 notes that contained an unknown code which the FBI believe would help in finding his killer, as they may reveal his whereabouts shortly before he died. Attempts were made by the FBI, as well as the American Cryptogram Association, to decipher the code, but with no success. Upon finding out about the notes, 12 years later, Ricky's family told police that he'd never used codes as a boy, and none of his family members knew how to decipher codes of any kind. His parents stated that he could only spell his name and certainly lacked the mental capacity to write in code. Police decided to ask the public for help, and they were inundated with calls and theories, prompting them to create a web page where the public could comment on the case. No solution to the codes was ever found, and the cause of Ricky's death remains undetermined. Number 2. On Friday, March 19, 2004, Brianna Maitland from Montgomery, Vermont, wrote an exam to complete her GED and went to lunch with her mother, Kelly, afterwards to celebrate the occasion. At lunch, her mother says she was in a good mood and they spoke about her plans to attend college. When they finished their lunch, they decided to do some shopping, and while they were in the checkout line at a store, Brianna noticed something outside. She told her mother she would be right back and left the store. Kelly met her outside after paying and noticed that she seemed unnerved, shaken, and agitated. Her mother didn't want to pry, so she didn't ask what was wrong. She dropped Brianna off between 3:30 and 4 p.m. at Jillian Stout's home, with whom she was staying. Before leaving for her shift at the Black Lantern Inn, she left a note to Jillian, saying that she would see her at home after work. She then set off in her 1985 Oldsmobile. When her shift ended, fellow staff members invited her to have dinner with them, but she declined, saying that she needed to rest before her shift at her second job in the morning. They would tell police that she left in her car alone. The following morning, about a mile from the Black Lantern Inn, Brianna's car was found backed into the side of an abandoned house, known as the Old Dutchburn House. The car had traveled partly through the wall, and police found 2 of her paychecks on the front seat. Next to the car, they found loose change, an unsmoked cigarette, and a water bottle. They assumed the car had been left there by a drunk driver and had it towed away. Brianna's mother didn't find out about the abandoned car until 5 days later, as Jillian had been away for the weekend, and so only read her note on Monday. She phoned Kelly the following morning, who then started searching for her daughter. She phoned Brianna's friends and workplaces, but no one had seen her. When her parents reported her missing, police showed them a photo of the crashed car, and they recognized it as Brianna. At first, police assumed that she'd simply left town of her own accord, but would later state that they suspected foul play to be involved, and that the accident scene may have been staged. Her family offered a reward of $20,000 for information on her whereabouts, but despite suspicions that 2 drug dealers, Raymond Ryans and Nathaniel Jackson, were involved, she has never been found. Number 1. The Flann Isles Lighthouse is located on the Eilean Mor Island, just off of mainland Scotland. On the 15th of December, 1900, a transatlantic steamer called Arctur passed by the island and noticed that the lighthouse's light wasn't burning. 3 days later, as the Arctur docked in Leith, they reported to the Northern Lighthouse Board, who dispatched the Lighthouse Relief tender ship to investigate. The ship arrived on Boxing Day, with the ship's captain, Jim Harvey, sounding the ship's horn and setting up a flare. He hoped that this would get the attention of the 3 lighthouse keepers, but they got no response. Relief lighthouse keeper Joseph Moore was sent up the 160 steps to the lighthouse, and upon entering, he noticed that the clock on the wall had stopped, the table was set for an uneaten meal, and one of the chairs was overturned. He reported back to Harvey, who then sent 2 sailors ashore to look for the 3 men. A thorough search was conducted, but they found only a set of oilskins, indicating that one of the men had gone out in just his shirt sleeves, which was strange as the keepers had noted in their log that they'd experienced awful weather. They focused their search on the landing platform on the west side of the island and found that a supply box had been smashed open and its contents were strewn about. Iron railings had been bent aside, part of a railway track had been uprooted from its concrete moorings, and a rock weighing over a ton had moved. Some of the turf from the top of the cliffs had been ripped up despite being 200 feet above sea level. Many theories have been presented as to what happened to the 3 men, from murder to being swept out to sea, but no definitive explanation has ever been found. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.